Have you ever felt a calling, a deep-seated pull towards something bigger than yourself? In the ancient world, some individuals felt this pull directly from God. These were the prophets. The prophetic books of the Old Testament are the collected words and stories of these special messengers. They are not simply history books, nor are they just collections of laws. Instead, they are powerful, passionate, and often poetic accounts of God speaking directly to his people through chosen individuals. These books form a crucial part of the Hebrew Bible, known to Christians as the Old Testament, and they offer a unique window into the relationship between humanity and the divine during a tumultuous period in Israel's history. So, what exactly makes a book prophetic? Well, it is not just about predicting the future, though that is certainly a part of it. A prophet was a spokesperson for God. Imagine getting a direct message from the creator of the universe, a message you were compelled to share with everyone, whether they wanted to hear it or not. That was the prophet's job. They were tasked with delivering God's warnings, his promises, and his calls for justice and righteousness. Their words were meant to guide the people, to correct their path when they strayed, and to offer them hope in times of despair. The books are prophetic because they carry the weight of this divine communication. These books are filled with vivid imagery and powerful emotions. The prophets didn't just deliver a dry memo from on high. They wept, they shouted, they pleaded, and they performed symbolic acts to get their point across. They spoke of visions of heavenly thrones and terrifying beasts, of desolate wastelands and flourishing gardens. Their language was designed to stir the soul and awaken the conscience of the nation, from the king on his throne to the poorest farmer in the field. Reading their words feels like listening in on a conversation that has echoed through millennia, a conversation about faith, failure, and the enduring promise of redemption. The prophets often found themselves in difficult, even dangerous situations. They spoke truth to power, which is rarely a popular thing to do. They challenged corrupt kings, greedy priests, and an indifferent public. They were often ignored, ridiculed, and sometimes even persecuted for their unwavering commitment to their divine mission. Yet they persisted. They believed so strongly in the message they carried that they were willing to risk everything. It is this courage, this unshakable faith, that makes their story so compelling and their words so powerful, even thousands of years after they were first spoken. It makes you wonder, what would you do if you received such a call? Among the many prophets, 4 stand out as the major prophets. This title isn't because they were more important, but simply because their books are much longer. The first is Isaiah, a prophet who ministered in Jerusalem during a time of great political upheaval. His book is a masterpiece of Hebrew poetry, filled with soaring prophecies of a coming Messiah and visions of a future where peace reigns over the entire earth. An interesting fact about Isaiah is that tradition holds he was a member of the royal family, a cousin to King Uzziah. This gave him direct access to the kings he often had to confront with God's challenging words. Next we meet Jeremiah, often called the weeping prophet. He lived during the final tragic years of the kingdom of Judah just before its destruction by the Babylonians. His task was a heartbreaking one, to warn his people of the coming doom if they did not turn back to God. He pleaded with them, his heart breaking for the suffering he knew was on the horizon. A fascinating detail about Jeremiah is that he was called to be a prophet from a very young age, and was explicitly told by God not to marry or have children, as a living symbol of the desolate future that awaited his unrepentant nation. Then there is Ezekiel. He was a priest who was taken into exile in Babylon along with many of his countrymen. His prophecies are among the most unique and symbolic in the entire Bible. He saw incredible visions like a valley of dry bones coming back to life, representing God's promise to restore the nation of Israel even after its apparent death. Ezekiel was also known for his dramatic public performances. For instance, he once lay on his side for over a year to symbolize the years of Israel's and Judah's sin, a powerful and strange act of prophetic theater meant to capture the attention of his fellow exiles. Finally, we have Daniel. His story is one of incredible faith and integrity in a foreign land. Taken to Babylon as a young man, he rose to high office in the courts of powerful kings like Nebuchadnezzar. The book of Daniel is a mix of captivating stories, like the famous tale of the lion's den, and apocalyptic visions of future world empires and the ultimate triumph of God's kingdom. A simple but amazing fact is that the book of Daniel is written in 2 languages. Part of it is in Hebrew, and the other part is in Aramaic, the common language of the Babylonian and Persian empires, reflecting its setting within those powerful kingdoms. The messages of these prophets, while unique to each man in his time, revolved around a few central themes. A primary message was a powerful call to social justice. The prophets were fierce advocates for the poor, the widows, the orphans, and the immigrants. Isaiah, for example, railed against leaders who make unjust laws and deprive the poor of their rights. They taught that true worship of God was not just about performing religious rituals in the temple, it was about how you treated the most vulnerable people in your society. This was a radical idea, insisting that faith must be matched by action and compassion. Another core message was a stern warning against idolatry. The people of Israel were constantly tempted to worship the gods of the surrounding nations, like Baal and Asherah. The prophets saw this as a profound betrayal of their covenant with the one true God who had rescued them from slavery in Egypt. Jeremiah described this spiritual infidelity as a deep wound, a forsaking of the spring of living water for broken cisterns that cannot hold water. Their warnings were not just about theological correctness. They believed that turning away from God would inevitably lead to moral decay and national disaster, which it ultimately did. Yet, amidst the dire warnings, there was always a message of hope. Even as they predicted destruction and exile, the prophets also spoke of a future restoration. Jeremiah, the weeping prophet, is also the one who gives one of the most hopeful prophecies, a new covenant that God would make with his people, one written not on stone tablets but on their hearts. Ezekiel's vision of the dry bones was a powerful promise that God could bring life from death and restore the nation. This dual message of judgment and grace is a hallmark of prophetic literature, showing a God who is just but also merciful. Finally, many of the prophetic books look forward to the coming of a special figure, a Messiah. Isaiah, more than any other, paints a detailed picture of this future king from the line of David. He would be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. This figure would establish a kingdom of perfect justice and righteousness. He would also be a suffering servant, who would bear the sins of the people to bring about their healing. These messianic prophecies became incredibly important for both Jews, who still await the Messiah, and for Christians, who believe they were fulfilled in the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth. So, why should we care about these ancient books today? For both Christians and Jews, these texts are foundational. For the Jewish people, the prophets are a vital part of their history and identity. They are the conscience of the nation, a constant reminder of the covenant at Mount Sinai and the call to be a light to the nations. The prophets' words are read in synagogues and studied for their ethical teachings, their emphasis on justice, and their enduring hope for a messianic age of peace. They are a testament to the enduring relationship between God and his chosen people, a story of love, betrayal, and unwavering faithfulness. For Christians, the prophetic books take on an additional layer of meaning. They see the entire Old Testament as pointing forward to Jesus Christ. The prophecies of a coming Messiah, a suffering servant, and a new covenant are seen as being perfectly fulfilled in Jesus. The Gospel writers, like Matthew and John, frequently quote the prophets to show how Jesus' life and ministry were the culmination of God's plan of salvation. Therefore, to understand Jesus and the New Testament, Christians believe you must first understand the promises and the world of the Old Testament prophets who foretold his coming. But their relevance extends beyond religious belief. The prophets' passionate cries for social justice continue to inspire people of all faiths and none. Their condemnation of greed, their defense of the poor and oppressed, and their challenges to corrupt power structures feel incredibly modern. When activists today speak truth to power, they are walking in the footsteps of Isaiah and Jeremiah. These ancient books provide a powerful moral language to critique injustice in our own societies and to imagine a better, more equitable world. They remind us that faith and justice are, and always have been, deeply intertwined. In the end, the prophetic books are more than just historical artifacts. They are a living, breathing testament to the human search for meaning and our complex relationship with the divine. They teach us that God is not a distant, silent entity, but one who is passionately involved in the world, who cares deeply about justice, mercy, and righteousness. They challenge us to examine our own lives, our own societies, and to ask ourselves, what is our calling? What message are we meant to share? The voices of the prophets still echo today, inviting us to listen and to respond.